with the help of storytelling. And I also help them figure out their inbound marketing strategies, mostly through content marketing. Before that, I was in charge of marketing operations at a Parisian startup accelerator called Numa. And even before that, I was managing operations for a small startup in San Francisco, for which I also chipped in when it came to helping with marketing efforts from time to time. So now that we've covered that bit, let me quickly give you a peek into what we'll cover today, this morning together. We'll start with a bit of an introduction on the context as to why content marketing is important. Then we'll cover the basics of the discipline. After that, I will show you the secrets behind creating relevant content step by step. We'll also cover some housekeeping rules as to what is essential to doing good content. And lastly, I'll have a little surprise for you guys. All right, so before we dive into the topic, I just need to tell you a little bit about the context which led me to be a content marketer. A bit over a year ago, I left my job into that startup accelerator, and I decided to become a freelancer, to take the big leap. And that came with a lot of things to do, incorporating my company, defining my pricing strategy, but mostly and more importantly, I had to figure out, well, to find clients first, and to also figure out what the hell I was going to offer them, to pitch them in terms of services. And back then, a year ago, and it's still relevant, I knew that inbound marketing was becoming much, much bigger than outbound marketing. And if you're not familiar with those terms, basically inbound marketing is all about drawing the customer towards you by creating content, which is non-intrusive, by attracting them towards you with your content. So for example, by creating videos, blog articles, etc. And outbound marketing is the opposite. So it's much more direct and maybe a little bit more aggressive. It's coming to your customers and grasping their attention in a more intrusive way. For example, through sponsored ads or by cold calling or cold emailing people. And yeah, anyways, outbound had been largely criticized back at the beginning of 2019 for many reasons, notably the fact that, well, customers don't like being intruded, being disturbed during their journey, be it online or offline. And like you probably feel the same way. There's nothing worse than being on YouTube and having to support that little ad that pops up before the video you want to launch. No wonder we created ad blockers. And secondly, and more importantly, the cost of sponsored and outbound acquisition has become more and more high, and it's bound to go up because with time, costs rise because of numerous reasons. Could be that there's more competitors on your market, so the cost of acquisition becomes higher because there's more pressure and more efforts on the paid acquisition. Could be that people are not interested because they have already seen your message. Can be a lot of things. So that's why I decided to focus on inbound marketing, and specifically on that part of inbound that we call content marketing. And the first brick of my freelance offer at the time was what I was basically good at. So writing articles, all kinds of articles, web optimized, manifestos, speeches. I was basically a ghostwriter, you could call that this. And to get to the point of content marketing, bear with me. When I started pitching my clients, the conversations always went like this. So for example, they would say, yes, we need someone to write articles for us because we're launching this blog and it's going to be super cool. And I was asking, okay, cool, but why do you want to launch a blog? And they were like, well, everybody does it, so we have to, which translated into a lack of understanding of why you should start content marketing, why you should start a blog. They had no strategic objectives. They were mostly following the trend, following what people were doing. The second thing that I heard a lot was clients telling me, well, we've been doing content for a month now. I don't understand. Why don't we have 4,000 visitors on our website? It's not working. So those clients were very impatient and they had a heroistic approach on the short term. They didn't understand that content marketing is a very long-term effort. And the third example, I made this one up, but I had a few clients who came to me with those super cool creative ideas about doing campaigns, content marketing on specific channels, which were absolutely irrelevant to the persona. So for example, someone wanted to do a TikTok campaign when their persona was a suburban mom. So definitely not on TikTok and definitely not interested about that kind of campaign. So that was also showing me that sometimes clients and people, when it came to content marketing, had a lack of knowledge about their audiences from a marketing standpoint. And they didn't do their job about looking at their persona specifically and looking at which acquisition channel was the most relevant for them to push their content on. So let's brush up these misconceptions and dive a little bit more into what content marketing really is, how you should do it, and what you should expect from it. So back to basics, the definition for starters. Content marketing, and this is my favorite definition that you can find online. It's a type of marketing that involves creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and acquire a clearly defined audience with the objective of driving profitable customer action. So 3 important things here. First of all, it's valuable. That means that content marketing is a paid forward sort of effort. You have to give before you can expect to receive something back. Second of all, it's relevant. So specific people you are targeting have specific needs, and you need to be able to match those needs exactly. And I mean it, you need to be just on point with what they expect if you want to capture their attention and trigger their interest. And last but not least, content marketing is consistent. It needs to be consistent. A common mistake I've seen very often is a lot of people go out there, start producing with a big fanfare, and they publish 3 or 4 pieces of content, and then they realize that actually it's super hard to keep up with producing at a frequent rate, for example, every week. So they just simply give up and they go silent. And that's one of the main pitfalls of content. It requires time, effort, and consistency to start getting noticed. Because people will not notice you at the start. You'll have to be more, you'll have to put a lot of effort in it and wait to be patient. All right, so to sum it up in a nutshell, content marketing is something that delivers value and that delights potential customers. And one of the most famous examples of content marketing that I like to use to illustrate that point is Coca-Cola. You probably all remember that campaign, and you probably purchased a few bottles with your name on it. It was a really a great content marketing campaign. It's the one where Coca-Cola printed local popular first names in pretty much every country they were having a foothold in. And the campaign was called Share a Coke with, insert name. And it was all being relevant to their customers, to people, because the bottles were personalized with their names, and the campaign went very viral, very fast, because it delighted people who posted pictures, selfies of themselves with their bottles. And it went super big, super fast. So a really good example of content marketing, personalization and relevance in a non-intrusive manner. And by the way, personalization is a really important part of that campaign, but it's not all. Content marketing, like the definition said, I'm just going to go back very quick. It also has the objective of driving profitable customer action, and how Coke did it, that they prompted people, they encouraged people to actually personalize their own bottles and to put any message they'd like, to put their own first names if Coca-Cola hadn't covered it in store, and to send their friends bottles with their names on it. So they kind of encouraged and built up on that momentum, on that personalization effort to encourage people to actually share the product with others, with people they had an emotional connection with. And that's how they integrated emotion into this campaign of content marketing, which was the smartest move they could have done. But of course, content marketing has a secret. And what's the secret sauce behind that Coca-Cola marketing campaign? Why did it work? Because it's not about the brand, it's all about the customer. And in order to be able to understand who your customer is and how to address him, you have to investigate before you create your content. So this is where we get to the part where I give you a few tips on how to create your content and which steps you should follow in order not to rush into the creation and the production right away, but in order to be able to understand your customers and your market first. So in my opinion, and this is just my methodology, but I hope it's useful for you guys, the first step is looking around. So don't look at yourself first. Look around, look at your competitors. What are they doing? What are the keywords they are positioning themselves on? What are their communication methodologies? How do they sell their products? How do they position themselves? What is their brand platform? So all of this in order not to copy them, that's super important, of course, but in order to understand what the opportunities for you are to position yourself on something they don't do or that they do poorly. And I think actually that's one of the big mistakes I see on the market too, is people trying to copy their competitors. That's really not a good strategy because your competitors have been doing their thing for a while. And if you come and simply copy paste their strategy, you're not going to be doing as good as they do. So you have to be able to understand where they are weak or where they are not present in order to adopt that niche. And I emphasize on the importance of doing that and not just copying, because that's a rookie mistake. And the second thing that's super important, even more important to look at, it's your customers or your prospective customers. It's really important to understand your personas. What do they aspire to? What interests them? What do they struggle with? What are their pain points? Well, you know the drill. Try to be in their heads to understand how you as a brand or as a company with an offer can chip in and say, hey, I can help. Here's my product. It's gonna change your life in a better way. All right. Only then are you able to look inside, to look at yourself. Who are you as a brand? What is your mission? What is your vision, your value proposition? What makes you unique? It's really important to be able to understand as a brand the big picture that you are trying to achieve. And for example, Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition towards sustainable energies, I think. So that's not Tesla does cars, but their vision, their mission, sorry, is to change the world towards a better consumption of energy. So it's much broader than the product itself. And you have to be aware of your own mission and your vision, which must be more ambitious than the scope of your products. To give you an example that's close to it, Elon Musk, that some of you might like, some of you might not. Well, his vision is quite ambitious, is that rockets technology will enable anyone to move to Mars and beyond. And in the future, cars, like gas-powered cars will be a relic of the past. They will be just like steam engines for our generation. So that's a vision that's quite bold, and this is powerful. This is what makes the brand ambitious, and this statement can captivate and convince an audience beyond a product. So you need to be aware of your specificities and your ambitions and your vision and your mission in order to address your audience. Okay, but you also need tools to do that, because I mean, the first tool, well, it's your brain, basically. That's quite easy. You need to reflect on that, and it's common sense to define your vision and your mission, although you need to do it with the people you work with your collaborators, your co-founders, and everybody needs to be aligned on that. But then if you need some tools to guide you in the process, what I personally use is a research roadmap. So I always plan my research in terms of interviewing personas, prospective customers, and sometimes stalking competitors for benchmark. And I use a persona template that has been created by HubSpot. That's super useful, very easy to use. And I always use that canvas to create personas for my clients. And the other big set of tools that can help you define your mission, your vision, your personas is a value proposition canvas. And if you're not familiar with it, a value proposition canvas is a tool which can help ensure that your product is positioned around what your customers' values and needs are. So it helps you articulate your value proposition in a relevant way for your audience. and you can find it by Googling online. It shouldn't be too hard. And sometimes I use a jobs to be done framework. That's a lot of tools, so you don't have to use all of them, but the jobs to be done framework, very quickly, it is an approach that is used in product management, usually product development, but you can use it in marketing as well. It can be useful. It basically helps you understand what your customer has in terms of goals, and those goals are called jobs. For example, a job to be done could be not spending too much time on cooking a meal. And in order to achieve that job, not spending too much time for cooking meals, there are a lot of products and services that your customers could hire to do the job. That could be, I don't know, a food delivery service that would shorten the time frame of cooking to 0, or a cooking machine that makes them do that more efficiently. So that framework can help you also position efficiently your offer. Right, step 3 gets even more interesting. Once you have understood who your customers are, how you can address them, and what makes your brand unique, comes the time to actually plan what you're going to produce in terms of content. And that's when we get really operational. So the first thing you should think of is, what things can you talk about? The example of Tesla, if we want to get back to that, was Tesla makes cars, but they are also talking about sustainable energies. They are talking about lifestyle for their customers. They're not restricted to cars specifically. And just like them, you should reflect on what your customer is interested in, that you are legitimate to talk about, and also seize those broader topics. You have to be broad in the way you address your competitors, your audiences, sorry. Once you have your themes, it's a good thing to also look at the channels you can actually start talking on. So where are your customers? Are they on LinkedIn? If you're a B2B company, most likely that will be a good platform to address them. Are they Generation Z? And in this case, maybe TikTok is relevant for you. Are they senior people? And in this case, maybe offline would be the best option for you, going door to door. This depends on your persona and on the way they prefer to consume information. But you have to be sure where you will have the most impact in order to address them. And usually when you select a channel, you will also have to think about a specific format, because channels each have their formats of predilection. For example, Facebook favors really emotional content. Facebook is all about emotions and political opinions. Twitter is all about information and news updates, and maybe a thought leader expressing their opinions about the economy. I'm just saying things that come to mind. And Instagram is all about lifestyle. So based on your product, your brand, and your things, you will also have to adapt those formats, video, images, and the way you push them on the channels to address people in a more impactful way. And then lastly, you'll have to define the frequency. The frequency is super important because, like I mentioned before, in order to be noticed, you have to produce a lot of content and you have to keep up your pace, because otherwise people are gonna be disappointed if they expect your content to show up on their feed at a specific time frame. All right. So just to give you a quick example of what I'm talking about, just in case it's still a bit blurry. I recently interviewed Estelle Zelizewski, who is the content manager of Shine. Shine is a French neobank that targets specifically entrepreneurs and freelancers, and they help freelancers and entrepreneurs manage their professional finances. And one thing that entrepreneurs and freelancers have in common, most of them, is that they hate taking care of finance stuff and the nitty-gritty details of admin. So Shine has decided for its themes to talk about admin and HR, to talk about legal issues, but also to go beyond and to help entrepreneurs and freelancers be more productive and efficient in the way they manage their time and they pitch clients, etc. So they also produce content that's related to productivity and tools. And I didn't cover, yes, the channels. The channels that they decided to go for were a Facebook group with over 3,000 people, in which people can ask their questions and other people will answer. So Shine decided to use that Facebook platform in order to be able to be closer to their targets, to their community, and to favor, how can I say that, to favor inter-community interactions in order to be able to federate entrepreneurs around their service, their product, which is a very smart move. But they also created a blog, which is the best way to list information, I think, on the net, because that's the equivalent of creating a repository where you can put all the information that people need. It's just like a gigantic encyclopedia about admin, finances, HR, etc., paying your taxes, that people can browse and get the answer to their question too. Okay, so I didn't cover the formats and the frequency for Shine because it's not as interesting. They do mostly articles, written content, because they focus on expert content, and the frequency, sorry, is 1 to 3 times a week, if I remember correctly. But what's really important is how they diversified their themes around the needs of their persona, and how they selected one channel that's very expert specific, which is a blog, and one channel that's much more emotional and about community, which is the Facebook group. Okay, and the last step, once you have figured that out, is to start producing and to actually be able to stay motivated and focused when you do so, because it's not as easy as it might look like. Right, so just a few rules as to how content marketing, good content marketing should be done. The first rule is that you should never expect success overnight, because content marketing is a long-term game. Results will start to show after 6, 7, 9 months, depends on how you are doing it. But if you're going for an organic approach, it takes much more time for people to notice you and for you to stand out from the noise that is currently in place, because there are a lot of people posting a lot of content. So even if your content is good, it will succeed, it will be popular, it will find its audiences, but it will take time. And it can be super hard for the ego at first, I warn you. The second rule is that you should set yourself a pace and you should stick to it, because people like consistency. Consistency is reassuring. Consistency is good. It makes us feel good to see something that's stable, that we can trust. So if you start doing things and you stop right away, people will feel that this trust is broken. So it's super important to be consistent. The third rule is ask for feedback, because when you produce content, it can be a little bit emotional. It's something that you imagined, something that you created, and it can be difficult to see what's wrong with it. If it doesn't succeed, it must be that there is something that's not speaking to your audiences. So go and talk to your audience and ask them what they would like to see, what you can improve in your content. It's important to be humble and to understand what they really need, even if it's sometimes hurts. The fourth rule is that you should always define your objectives. If you go and produce content, it's good, but you have to understand what you expect to take out of that content, what it can help you do. For example, your objective could be driving more traffic to your website, optimizing your conversions, having more people subscribe to your newsletter. You have to know what you're aiming for before you launch your content initiatives, because you have to be able to measure if it works and to readjust if it doesn't. And the last rule is repurpose your content. It is super important once you produce something to be able to recycle it in order to produce more with less effort. And I'm gonna show you a tangible example here. That's actually mine, yours truly. Basically, what I do is that my objective is twofold. I want to learn and share tips about content marketing to as many people as I can. And I want to create a community of content creators in order to exchange and collaborate and share insights on the good practices of content creation. So I decided to start a podcast that is called The Storyline, and that interviews content managers in startups. I decided to post one episode every week and to post it on LinkedIn. And based on that podcast, on that interview, every time I record a new episode, I also take time to write articles about content marketing based on the insights that I get from the podcast episodes. And that helps me publish things on my website's blog. And once I have the articles, I turn the articles into short, snackable pieces of content, visual quotes, etc., that I post on LinkedIn frequently. And all of this I do in order to prompt people to subscribe to my newsletter, which is my end goal, because the newsletter helps me share more content to people and to actually start a twofold conversation with people, because if they are subscribed on the newsletter, they can actually respond and we can engage in a conversation. And in order to support that, I rely on my community in order to gain visibility and to actually generate more deals around content marketing. And I also organize events during which I mention the community, the newsletter, the podcast, etc. So it's all kind of interconnected, and every single brick of content supports the other. And everything gets back on the slide to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the place where I promote all that content. All right, I hope it's clear. I'm sorry, it looks a bit like, now that I look at it again, it looks a bit blurry, but I hope that made sense to you. And this is basically the 4 steps I use every time I produce content, but that's basically what I just said: recording the episode, getting the transcript and turning it into expert articles for the blog, summing up the episode's key learnings, and then creating visuals for LinkedIn. All right, just before we start with questions, I have a little gift for you. I'm so sorry, it's in French, but DeepL is the best translator there is on the market, and you'll probably make sense of what I say in it. I created this toolbox a few days ago, and it lists all the tools that I use to create my own content. So it's basically open source toolbox, and the URL is on the right. You can also get that toolbox if you subscribe to my newsletter, which is also mentioned on the link below, or otherwise there's a bit link that I will share in the chat right afterwards once we get to questions, where you can get to my website and you can find everything, because like I said, everything is interconnected. Okay, so I hope you found this little class useful. I hope it helped you kind of understand that you need to figure out your own brand, your customers, and your process before you start creating content. And if you have any questions, shoot, I'm here for you guys.
Cool, thank you, Noémie. Do you have access to the chat? Do you see all the questions?
All right, I can click on it. Okay.
I think there was a first one from Raphael. If you can just repeat what were the rule 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, sure.
That you just mentioned.
Let me check rules. Rules are good. Rule 1. So yes, patience. It's actually the most important rule, because it actually happened to me. I started doing those podcast episodes, and I expected success overnight. Maybe not success, but at least recognition and to trigger people's interest. But I mean, at first, people won't notice, because it's only once you start to reach that kind of a critical size, once you are everywhere and you're posting frequently, that people start noticing. So content marketing is a long-term game, and that's also true. So that's what I just mentioned, is mostly when you post things and when you start posting on social media. But when you do SEO and when you write in order to optimize your content and to better reference yourself online, it also takes months before Google's bots actually give you a prime spotlight in people's search engine result pages, sorry. And the second rule is set a pace and stick to it. So I think it's really important, once you've started to produce content, to be able to maintain the pace at which you're going, because otherwise people who have started to be accustomed to seeing you publish content or post content are going to be disappointed, and they're going to think you're not serious about it. So that's, for example, a mistake I made, if we're about examples, is that I decided to post an episode of my podcast every Tuesday, and it's super hard, especially in terms of pandemics, in times of pandemics, when you're stuck at home, to interview people and to actually produce the content, that I have to stick to it, because if I don't, I'm going to break my momentum. So you have to think about the pace you can maintain that's good for you before you start producing.
Top. Thanks, Noémie.
Yeah.
We have a question from Amaury, who's asking, do you have any tool or good practices to handle multilingual posting / identity on social media?
Unfortunately, I don't. I usually manage either French or English speaking accounts. It's super hard, actually. That's a really good question. And I'm not sure there's a really good standard solution on the market. So for example, I had that question from a client who has pan-European ambitions, that is French. And the first question was, do we publish in French or in English or both? And I think you shouldn't go down the rabbit hole of doing multilingual content. I mean, I don't know the context of your project, but I think based on whether you want to address a local or a global market, you should, if you're local, just use the local language. But if you have any kind of ambition to expand to other countries, you should use English. I know it's half an answer, but that's the best I got, sorry.
I'm trying to see, because it's in the middle of all the thank you, Noémie. That was great.
Thank you, guys.
From Aladdin, hi Noémie, how content marketing could be adapted to personal branding for independent professionals?
Yes, so that's exactly, thank you for the question. That's exactly what I'm doing with my podcast, actually, because I'm a content marketer. I go and interview other content marketers who work for startups. And sometimes those people actually ask me if I have any bandwidth to write for them. So that's also a source of finding new clients. But it also helps me, since I'm interviewing and accessing those people who are experts at their jobs, it allows me to associate my image to theirs. So it's like kind of basically a bonus, a personal branding boost. And so the way I do it, it's the last slide that let me go back to that slide. The way I do it is I try to create blog articles, so written content, a podcast around the theme on which I position myself, which is content marketing, but also to create a community around that topic of other content marketers and content creators that I try to meet during events. And all of this makes me more visible online and offline. I hope that answered the question. So you have to find your niche, and then you can start figuring out your format. So maybe a podcast, maybe articles, maybe events, and to start building a community around that.
Okay, let me check another one.
Maybe I saw Christos, who said, I'm not so good at writing blogs, but I'd like to offer my content from podcast and YouTube videos as a blog post. Do you have a good advice or an idea? I mean, it takes a lot of time. I have maybe something that I tried that didn't work super well because it's so long to actually retranscript by hand what people are saying into a written content. So I tried to put my my audio and video content on YouTube and to use the automated transcript feature. So basically a robot that retranscribes subtitles about what's being said in the video. And I had very mitigated success with that because the robot apparently didn't understand anything that I said. And every word was definitely not the word that I was saying. But it still helped me have some written content that I had to rework on paper. So basically, maybe use YouTube to retranscribe the content that you have and then try to massage it a little bit into something that's more readable and digestible. And well, if you're not so good at writing, but you have budget, you can always ask another freelancer to help you with with writing articles.
Okay, I think we have one from Nordin asking which newsletter tool would you recommend?
Yes, so I am using Substack. Substack, I'll post it in the channel. It's a really good tool. It's quite recent, and I think it's better than MailChimp because it's much more simple. It doesn't have a lot of fancy features, and I mean, visually, it's not as nice as MailChimp. You can't really design it, but it helps you send very easily written email content to people who subscribe to it. And you can create threads as well, so conversations with people, which is really cool.
Okay, thanks, Raphael. I see that
Yes.
people had question
I'll try
about
to.
the Coca-Cola campaign and why is it considered content marketing. It was very early in the presentation, the question, and I couldn't find it, like the precise one.
Okay, so the question is, why is Coca-Cola considered content marketing?
Yes, why this campaign?
Yes, so it's actually a good question because it's half content marketing, half because it's still monetizing the content. But basically, so if we go back to the definition, content marketing is all about being non-intrusive. Maybe I didn't stress that out enough. That so basically you're offering value to your customers before you're asking them something. And the way Coca-Cola did it with their campaign was that they played the card of personalization of their bottles by putting the names of people in them. So that's obvious, you know that. But that card helped them offer a value that was above the fact, the Coca-Cola brand, which was sharing a good moment, a personalized moment with your friends. And the idea behind the campaign was that people had their own product, their own bottle with their name on it, that they could actually also use to ship products to their friends. Sorry, I'm explaining it very poorly. Basically, the idea was to reinforce connections and bond with other people that you like, because you were able to send them a bottle of Coca-Cola. So it's monetizing the campaign, of course, but content marketing monetizes also its efforts. That the idea was to offer value before asking for money. So they offered you the value of sharing a good moment with your friend in a personalized way before asking you to pay for the bottle.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I have a question from Samira asking, do you integrate some promotional ads in the content marketing, or is it misperceived by the customers, or it's something different than content marketing?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So basically, content marketing is all about being non-intrusive. So you shouldn't be direct, but you can be subtle. So for example, if we take the example of Shine, the bank, they are creating a lot of content that's useful for entrepreneurs who want to figure out how to pay their bills, how to be compliant with federal laws, etc. But in maybe 20% of their articles, at the end of the article, they will say, by the way, Shine has a tool for that. So if you become our client, you'll have access to that tool. So you can promote your of course, your offers. And I mean, this is the overall goal of content marketing, but you have to do it in a subtle way.
Okay. I think we had one regarding the persona and how to create it.
Yes.
I think you shared the one from HubSpot.
Yes. So
creating my persona or make my persona. I have it here.
Let me go back to the.
So I think that was this
I'll
one. In
stop sharing
case you guys missed
All right.
the link.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'll just try to find you the links of Substack, substack.com actually. So let me get back to it. It's here. Tech. This is Substack, so the emailing tool that's really useful. Bit.ly tech. This is the link to my podcast. So if you want, you can also, through this link, subscribe to the newsletter and receive directly the contents toolbox. And did I mention anything else? Is there any other link that I can help you with?
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, I see Raphael who's talking about, yes, user-generated content. That's actually a good comment. So the fact, the good thing about the Coca-Cola campaign is that they encourage people to take selfies with their own bottles, and that actually created a lot of content for free for Coca-Cola, which augmented their visibility. Super cool, good comment.
Okay, and Noémie, you confirm that we have info on the bit.ly link you just sent, right?
So yes, on the bit.ly, if you subscribe to, and I'm sorry, it's in French, but if you subscribe to the newsletter, you will receive an email with the content toolbox. Otherwise, I can give you the Notion link, but it's very long. Let me try to find it. Tac. All right. Here we go. Yes, I do apologize for the non-French speaking people. My strategy was very local, so I do everything in French. But you can also shoot me an email and I will respond. I'll just put my email in there.
Yep, so you guys can make a screenshot of these two links, so make sure you will remember it and type it in your browser. We have a question from Oran asking if it's possible to download the person who's created or if it's only available online with HubSpot. Do you know, Noémie?
I think I think you can definitely download the page where you fill in your persona. So if you go on HubSpot, yeah, you take the My Persona tool. And yeah, I think you can download it. I think I've downloaded it before. It's probably, and if you don't, you just basically try to print it and it will show up as a PDF. You're welcome. All right.
Perfect.
Any questions now? Okay, well, I don't know if you're seeing, what does it mean on Substack? Earn money publishing? Yes. So Substack, basically, it's a tool that helps people, content creators, start a newsletter. And the first option is you publish your newsletter for free. But Substack also has a feature where they allow people to actually require from subscriber to pay for the newsletter. So it's a way for content creators to monetize their content. But I'm definitely not there yet. My newsletter is free, for sure. Okay. I'm going back to, how did I find my first clients? Did you have connections from previous jobs? So one of my, yes, I was working for a startup accelerator, so I was super lucky to already be in touch with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I had a few connections in the startup ecosystem in France. So most of my clients have come to me in an organic way. Also, the fact that I'm creating a lot of content makes me visible, which is the point of that presentation, to help you figure out how to become more visible in your niche. But I found a few clients on Malt actually as well. A few of them. Do I have anything in French for writing an article? No, but I'm currently working on a guide and I will share it in my newsletter very, very soon.
We have a question regarding the slides, Noémie.
Yes.
Will it be available in the bit.ly or on the Notion link?
Maybe let me do a bit.ly right now, so this is easier for you guys. Okay, I will share the presentation, make it accessible to everyone with the link. Okay. I'm going on bit.ly right now, creating the link, and bit.ly/ Noémie Malt. Okay, here you go, guys. This is the slides. This is an underscore between Noémie and Malt. Maybe I shouldn't have put an underscore, sorry.
So can Liz ask what's Bitly?
Yes.
I guess it's a better way to share some links as we are doing now.
Yeah, Bitly basically just it's a URL generator, so it helps you create shorter links. You put in the initial link, and Bitly helps you define what the URL should be. So it's just to make shorter links, basically.
Yes, you can just type this in your browser, and then you will find the document of Noémie.
Yes, and I can track everybody who opened it. Bitly is also a tool for stalkers, so it's a really good tool.
Cool. Well, we don't have any more questions. Perfect. Thank you, guys. We're still like almost 100 here.
Wow. Thank you for your time and your attention. I really hope it was useful for you guys, and don't hesitate to reach out and to tell me about your progress once you start with content marketing. And Twitter and LinkedIn. Yes. Is there, oh, good question about LinkedIn engagement. So it's true. So Amaury is saying that usually you can see more engagement when you're posting from a personal account than from a company account. It's really true for example, for me, sometimes I post from my personal account, and I have over 10,000 reach in this post. And when I post from the Storyline podcast LinkedIn page, I have merely 100 or 200 views, which is really pathetic compared to that reach from a personal account. So what I usually advise is that you still try to post company updates and big updates related to your product on your company's LinkedIn page, and as a person, you simply reshare the initial post. But if you want to post more emotional or thought leadership content, you have to have someone within the company who will incarnate that message, who will incarnate the company. You have to maybe select one person who will be the face of the company on social networks. And that can be your CEO, that can be your CMO, that can be your CTO, whatever you'd like. That there has to be someone who will publish content on behalf of your company. I think that's what I've been trying with a few clients, and it works pretty well. Personal accounts equal personal brand equal company. Yes, if you're a freelancer or an individual, it's easier. You don't have to juggle with multiple accounts. And really, for personal branding, going through LinkedIn is really incredibly efficient. You have thousands, tens of thousands of views on each post if you start to be consistent and to share values. There's also a bunch of strategies. Maybe you've noticed that a lot of people are offering free tools, etc., in exchange for a like and a comment on their post. And that's a strategy that helps you get more engagement on your posts. And if you get more engagement on your posts, LinkedIn will help you be more visible and will show your post to more people in their feed. So it's a kind of a virtuous circle if you use that. So your objective on LinkedIn is to have as many likes and comments as you can on a post. You can actually ask people to do it in exchange for a favor. And recommendations that might help some of you. Oh, okay, so that's not the question. Cool. Any best practice accounts for good personal brand? Well, it depends. Hasna, what's your industry or your product? And the filmmaker. Ooh, that's a tough one. I will show you. I think in terms of best, well, I don't really know your industry, I'm sorry, but in terms of best practices, I really like Comet, which is a French company. So the examples will be in French, but Comet is a company that, it's working also as a freelancer. They source developers for projects, and basically the company itself is not doing an amazing personal branding strategy, but the chief marketing officer of that company His name is Johan Lopez. He's excellent at sharing free value and at content marketing. Every week, he shares a gift. He shares an initiative that he has created in exchange for engagement on his posts. And I think it's a really good example of things you could do. You could definitely try to copy him. Any other questions? How to know which kind of content suggest? Do you have to ask people directly? Yes, definitely. That's super hard, but there's basically two kinds of research. There's primary research and secondary research, and secondary research is quantitative. So you will go online, you will look at surveys, research that has been done previously, ebooks, etc. And so quantitative, but that's not what will tell you for real what makes your customers tick. In order to know that, you have to do primary research, which goes through interviews and panels. And I think that really the best option that you have is to ask people for a 20-30 minutes call and to actually let them speak, and they will give you the answers you need. A good trick is to go on Amazon and to look at the reviews of products that are similar to yours and to look at what people are saying in the comments, in the reviews of the product. And in this way, you will see why or how they are happy or not with a product that's similar to yours and what they are expecting from that product. Okay, focus on, yes. Do you think it's better to focus on one channel first before starting to publish content on too many channels? Absolutely. Just like in growth hacking, you have to do one channel at a time because you have to put a lot of work into understanding what exactly works on that specific channel, what formats, what frequency, etc. And it will take time and effort before you figure that out. And once you have figured it out, you can kind of automate whatever you found is your best practices on there and move on to another channel. But I think it's a very common mistake to try to be everywhere at first and to start big and broad. But actually, you should start narrow and broaden with time, because this way you can still keep the focus on understanding what works and what doesn't.